Now let us return just briefly to the infinite consciousness that you are. For instance, you are conscious of the stars. You are conscious of the immeasurable, free, boundless sky, aren't you? Well, I am conscious of the limitless heavens too. So is everyone. And it is the same consciousness, the same awareness that is aware of these limitless, boundless, free heavens. Now, the word identity is a tremendous word in our vocabulary. For instance, you might say that your awareness of the heavens is distinctly your awareness, while my awareness of the heavens at any given moment is distinctly my awareness, the awareness, the consciousness that I am. And this is true. However, the identity itself, your identity, for instance, is realized or is made plain or made clear, I should say, by the fact that you at any given moment are aware or have focused your attention upon any specific aspect of this universe. For instance, you might be focusing your attention upon the stars and planets, and I might be focusing my attention upon the mountains or upon the tides at the same moment. Now, the identity that you are, the specific identity that you are, would be actively engaged in what you were seeing, while the specific identity that I am would be actively engaged in what I was seeing at the moment, you see. Now, therein is our identity. There'll be more on this thing of identity as we go on in this record. But at the same time, it is a good thing to begin to realize somewhat in what way we are specific identities, to realize more and more of it. Now, there is no boundary line between you and the limitless skies. And as I say, there is no boundary line between me and the limitless skies. Now, do you see what we're realizing here? We're perceiving more of how great, how big, how free we are. Not only that, we are perceiving how complete we are and how it is that we are one, and yet each one is a specific identity, although there is no separation between us. Now, if you are questioning further about this thing of identity, don't bother at the moment, because we're going into this farther a little later. Furthermore, if there should still be any question within your consciousness about this, as your infinite, boundless self reveals itself to yourself as yourself, you're going to find this revelation of what the meaning of identity is taking place to a greater and greater extent right within your own consciousness. But what we are going to do is to bring all of this infinitude right into the focus of the specific identity you are. And oh, my dear one, in this there is freedom. And this is the only way there can be freedom. You know, Jesus made one of his greatest statements when Lazarus came walking out of that tomb. You know, he said, "Loose him and let him go." Yes, release him, free him, thus releasing and freeing yourselves, he might have said to those standing around. If you bind him, you are binding yourself, you see. Disperse the imaginary circle that would limit the life that he is. Disperse the imaginary circle that would limit the life that you are. Now remember, it is the false sense of being a person, a mortal, that is seen to bind you, to enslave you, and to limit you. Now this is because you are supposed to be born. Now this is why we are first of all perceiving your infinite, impersonal, unbound, free self. So often it is asked, how did I get into this illusory state? Well, you might just as well ask, how did I get into the dream I had last night? You weren't in that dream now, were you? Actually, were you? Just question yourself. Was I really riding in that car in my dream last night? Was I really about to fall off that cliff? Was I really panicked and so on? Or was I perfectly safe, resting in bed? Now, we know the answer to that. Not only were you not in the dream, but actually it was not your dream. It wasn't anyone's dream. Because the dream of itself is the illusion's illusion. It's the dream's dream. Now it does seem that at birth you drop into a dream, but this is only a seeming. For you, the one identity, why the identity, you are never in all the you're never in all the trouble. You're never in the difficulty that appears in the so-called dream of human life, from what's called birth to what's called death. Doesn't make any difference whether you call it a daydream, a night dream, or a daymare. It's all the same, but it is not your dream. Now, in 3 essential steps, you'll find a very clear explanation of the so-called night dreams versus the daydreams. So we won't go farther into this thing of the dream at the moment, but it is well to remember that the consciousness you are is not a dreamer. You know, the identity that you are never dreamed. In all the eternity of your being, you never dreamed a daydream or a night dream either. Both the dream and the dreamer are illusory pretensions to existence. One of the first requisites of the ultimate is the recognition of our dreamless eternality. This is particularly true if we seem to be going through a time of trial. It helps so very much to realize that this whole appearance of a human span of life from birth to death, why, it's but a split second. It's just a split second in the eternality of your being. Just think of that. It gives us a little better perspective. That's why it's well, in realizing our infinite, boundless self, to realize our eternal, boundless self just as well. You know, sometimes we get things all out of perspective here, it seems. Something will come up and it just seems such a tragedy, or it seems such a threat, or it seems such a deep trouble, or a great illness, or something like that. And yet, if we could just immediately, when something like this presents itself, say, all right, now, how big am I? How big am I? Can there be this little pinpoint of the infinity that I am that can cause me to focus my attention completely upon this, rob me of my joy and my peace? Is this really something in the infinity that I am? Or is it but a little pinpoint where something dark for just a split second in the eternity of my being seems to be trying to call my attention to it? It's well to ask yourself questions like this from time to time, and it's particularly wisdom to, when anything presents itself that seems very bad at the moment, to say, all right, how temporal am I? Am I a little temporary human being living from what's supposed to be birth until death? And if all of this that could be called a time lapse between birth and death, if it can only be a split second in the eternality of my being, if I really am eternal, how much so-called time does this thing that looks to be a problem in my life at the moment, what can this be? How long can this be if it's only a split second in eternity, you see? Oh, it helps us. It helps us much to have a perspective of this. And then these things, if we can see how much a pinpoint and how much a split second they are, they lose their importance to us, you see. It gives us a bigger, more glorious view of everything. You see, when you're doing that, what what is really taking place is that you're claiming your infinite identity. You are simply saying, and when you say, I am infinite, for I am infinite consciousness, I am infinity itself, I am eternal, for I am eternal consciousness, I am eternality itself. Well, what are you doing? You're claiming your infinite, eternal identity. In other words, you are claiming your God identity. And you don't have to go through any rigmarole about it at all. It's just an instant recognition, an announcement, a proclamation of what you really are. This is claiming your God identity. Yes, it is well to claim your infinite identity, but never get this confused with a poor little limited human confined to this little body, confined to this little house, this little room, this little apartment, this little town, this little city, this little country, this state, this earth planet. No, that's not claiming our identity. No. The only way you can claim your identity is to claim your infinite identity. Neither do we claim our I am identity as though it were confined to any little human environment. You see, so long as we seem to limit ourselves to human environments, why, we're going to seem to have to suffer all the trouble, all the limitations of the human environment. Oh, what I'm really saying to you, what I'm really saying is, come on, open up, open your consciousness, be wide open, and just fill the heavens and the earth, because you already do fill the heavens and the earth, because you are the heaven and the earth. No, we remove ourselves from the so-called problem by realizing our infinite, eternal identity. Can you see why I seem to be dwelling so much on this one subject? It's tremendously important. As long as we seem to confine ourselves to this little infinitesimal environment, we're surely going to try to solve our problems from the level of the problem. After all, isn't it in this little infinitesimal pinpoint that the problem seems to be? And if we are going to continue to seem to limit ourselves to this little pinpoint, well, aren't we going to still be trying to solve our problems inside a pinpoint, inside a split second? It can't be done. You never can solve the problem from the level of the problem. This is exactly what we've done before, and we know it just doesn't work. Oh, sometimes it works for a while, to some extent, but it doesn't work enough, and it doesn't work quickly enough. You see, there can be no method of solving a problem in the ultimate. There just can't be. The realization of the infinite presence and power of the perfect love you are reveals there is no problem to solve. You see, it isn't solving a problem. It's all revelation. It's all your own consciousness revealing itself as it is. Now, if you realize that you are infinite, omnipotent perfection itself, how can you be aware of an unsolved problem? You can't. You aren't. You see, a so-called mind, that's a small m, that uses a method to solve a problem is the same little illusory mind that recognizes the problem. Not only that, it's the same little illusory mind that causes the problem, and it's the same little illusory mind that prolongs it. That's, of course, what I mean by trying to solve the problem from the level of the problem. How can the so-called mind, it isn't mind, you know, how can the so-called mind that is supposed to know a problem, supposed to have caused a problem by wrong thinking or something like that, or doing something wrong, why, how can that mind solve the problem that it seemed to cause? It can't be done. No problem can be solved from the standpoint of the human mind. In fact, no problem can be solved, period, for there is no problem. A so-called mind that uses a method to solve a problem, of course, as I said, is the same little illusory mind that causes the problem. Now, we can't use the ultimate. Oh, you know, we used to say, or I used to hear it said, I never did say it, I couldn't. But we used to say, oh, I use the truth, I use the truth. Well, nothing could be more foolish than that statement. We can't use God, we can't use ourself, we can't use our God self. We can only be our God self. We can't do anything with the ultimate. We can only know it. We can only know it, and we can only be what we know. Furthermore, the use of a method requires thought or thinking. Well, mind, consciousness, does not have to think. You know, this thing of thinking is supposed to take time. Well, where in the world are you going to have an immediate realization of perfection if you have to think yourself into it? You can't. Or how are you going to have an immediate release from something that seems like a problem if you have to think yourself out of it? You can't, you see. So the thinking, consciousness doesn't think, it doesn't have to think. Consciousness simply knows. Mind knows. Consciousness is aware, and it's an instant thing, always. Why? Because all of eternal perfection, infinite perfection, is right here now, and the consciousness you are that's aware of this fact is right here and now, fully aware of this fact. Mind knows only itself. Mind knows only its own perfection. Consciousness is aware only of being its perfect self. Now you are the mind, you are the consciousness that is only aware of being your perfect self. Now, immediate perfection is never realized by using a method, or by thinking, or by reasoning. It is only realized by being conscious that it already is, that in order to be at all, we have to be the infinite perfection that is God being. Now, in speaking of immediate perfection, I'm not confining this perfection to just the body. This perfection must be our entire experience, that is, it has to be our everyday life. This perfection has to be our business. It has to be our homes. This perfection has to be our loved ones, our friendships. In fact, this perfection has to be our entire universe. Now, you'll remember that the only way we can know that a truth is true is if we experience the evidence of its truth. Without evidence, we might as well give up, because we might be on the wrong track entirely. You know, there is a man in Baltimore who writes once in a while, and he says the ultimate is the practical absolute. Well, I think that he has a point there, because it is practical from the standpoint of the fact that it works. It works. It proves itself. Now, you don't prove the ultimate. I don't prove the ultimate. No one can prove the ultimate. The ultimate proves itself just by virtue of the fact that it is already true. It needs no proving. It really needs no proving. Any truth needs no proving in order to be already true, already what it is. But I think that's a rather interesting thing that it has been called the practical absolute. As certain it is that it has proved practical by thousands. Now, what good is it for all of this glorious truth to be true unless its truth is evidenced in our daily affairs? Not a bit, not at all. Now let us consider just one example of how this truth evidences itself in and as our daily experience. Suppose, for instance, you want to sell a house. Do you use a mental method to complete this sale? Well, if you do, you're apt to have that house up for sale for quite a while. No, indeed, you do not use a mental method to complete this sale. The very so-called mind that applies a mental method is the illusion, the darkness that is delaying the immediate evidence of the fact that it is already done. We don't make anything take place. Why, the very instant that it occurred to you that that house should be sold, right then the sale was in your consciousness, wasn't it? All right, then it was already done, wasn't it? There's another point too. If you were to use a method, well, that would be doing something of yourself about this. And that is where all the trouble comes. Whenever we try to do something, we get so busy, you know. We just do so much mental work and so forth, and we're not doing a thing. What do we do then? We don't do anything. We see, don't you see? It's different. It's altogether different. We see, we perceive, we realize, we consider all the fact, the eternally established fact of completeness. Now there comes that word completeness again, you see. Because there is no complete anything. There is no incomplete sale of a house. There is no incomplete health. There is no incomplete perfection. There is no incomplete supply. There is no incomplete life. Do you know a temporary life would be an incomplete life? For a life to be complete, it must be eternal. Do you know that a little finite consciousness bounded by a little environment would be an incomplete consciousness? Because for consciousness to be complete, consciousness has to be infinite, and that wherever consciousness is, life is. Don't you see? Oh, this word completeness is a tremendous word. Now, right now, I must remind you that God is this universe. Thus, this universe is complete. Your consciousness is your universe. Thus, your universe is complete because your consciousness is God being conscious. You know, it says in the Bible, before they call, I will answer. Before they call, I will answer. How true it is that before ever anything occurs to us that should be done, it is already done. Before you even decided to sell this house, the sale was complete. We don't make a sale, you know. What happens? We become aware that the sale is already made. We don't make health, you know. We don't make an unhealthy body into a healthy body. We become aware that the body already is healthy, because the body already is health itself. And going back to the house now, if the sale had not been complete, and complete in and as your experience, why, it would never have occurred to you to sell this house. It's like asking questions. For instance, the question has to be about something, doesn't it? And it has to be about something that already exists. No one would ask a question about something that he knew didn't exist at all. The something that the question that is about has to exist, or it would never occur to anyone to ask the question about it. And you can apply that right to the so-called need to sell a house, or any other seeming need. It doesn't matter what it is. It's only because the supply for that need is present that your attention happens to be called to what seems to be the need. Suppose it seems that you are badly in need of money. Now, are you really? No. But because we must realize that we are complete, including our infinite supply, or the infinite supply that we are, if there seems to be a need for money or for supply in the form of money, That can only mean that the infinite supply we are is announcing itself as that particular aspect of our experience. So you see, the need is not the thing to consider, and neither should we consider any means of doing something to supply that need. The fact to consider is the completeness of your entire universe, the completeness of your entire experience. There is nothing that needs to be completed. All is complete. There is nothing that needs to be done, for all is forever done. You know, you couldn't imagine God having to do something to make himself more perfect or more complete, could you? No. You couldn't imagine God erecting and destroying himself constantly either, could you? That wouldn't be completeness either. It wouldn't be eternal perfection, which is completeness. This universe is not in a process of being completed. You know, there are those who say that the universe is continuing to be completed, that it's continuing to expand. Well, this is not true. It is that as we become more aware of our infinitude, we seem to become more aware of the infinitude of the universe itself, because the universe is our consciousness, and our consciousness is the universe. So you see, this universe is complete, our consciousness is complete. Then this universe is not in a process of completing itself or of being complete. It is complete. Now your universe, remember, your universe is this universe. Your universe is not in a process of being completed. Your universe is not in a process even of completing itself. Your universe is complete. Now, that which appears to be your need to sell a house, then, is but the consciousness you are, revealing the fact that the house is already sold. It's the seeming encirclement of illusion that has kept you from being aware of this fact, separation. Now, don't you see the argument, the illusion, that you can be separated from the one who would be the buyer of the house, that you can be separated from the solution of the whole thing. You can. Separated in time, for instance, from the consummation of the sale. Separated in space, too, from the one to whom that house belongs right at that instant. No, it's the seeming encirclement of illusion. It's the illusion of time, the illusion of space, of division, of separateness, that seems, remember for just a split second, it just seems to prevent your perception that all is done, all is complete right now, and you are aware of it. Now, let me give you an illustration of this. 2 years ago, we were in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and my husband was very interested in the last game of the World Series. And so he was watching it on TV, and he asked me to come in and sit with him and watch the game. Well, I just couldn't quite take the time to watch the whole game, but I did go in and watch just the first inning of the game. At the end of the first inning, I got up to go, and he said, "Oh, Marie, can't you just stay and watch one ball game with me?" And I said, "Well, honey, I don't need to, you know, because I know the score. I know when the runs are to be made, and I know what the final score is to be." And he said, "Well, how can you know this?" He said, "A ball game isn't important to you. I've known you to know things like this about things that were important to you, but," he said, "a ball game isn't important." And I said, "I don't know at the moment, but I just know." So he questioned me, and I told him exactly what innings their runs were going to occur in, and what the final score would be, and it turned out to be just like that. Well, then I questioned myself about that afterward, and I said, "How did I know?" And it came so clearly. Why, that ball game was already played. It was already played before it was seen on TV. It was not something that just occurred just then. You know, I couldn't have seen that, the score. I wouldn't have known the score, the final score. How could I, if it wasn't already done? You see, that's why I'm so insistent upon the fact that there's no such thing as a prophecy. These prophets of the Bible that were supposed to prophesy these things that were supposed to take place, well, actually, they were not prophesying something that was going to take place. It was that they were spiritually enlightened enough to see what already was. There's quite a difference here, you see. Now, let us make no mistake about this. This has nothing at all to do with visualizing or fortune-telling or anything like that at all. You don't really try, you know. It's just that suddenly you are aware. Now, it's far different than visualizing something you want to take place. We don't visualize, you know. That would be doing something about it. We don't do anything about it. We just, without effort, consider the infinite completeness that constitutes the universe, and then we perceive that this infinite completeness is our completeness, for we are this infinite completeness. We can be assured of one thing: just so long as we believe that we are incomplete in any way, we're going to try to do something about it, you know. We're going to try to struggle and strain, either mentally or so-called physically, to change incompleteness into completeness. Now, God, this universe, your universe, is not in a state of becoming complete. Even if you could have a need, it would only be the need to see. It would only be the need to perceive the completeness you already are. But being completely conscious, a consciousness, you can't even have a need. All that is necessary is to open your eyes, and see the glorious completeness that already is you. See the glorious completeness that already is your life. See the glorious completeness that already is your eternal and entire experience. Take this statement from the Bible, if you wish. It's a wonderful statement of present completeness. And it's in Ecclesiastes, the 1st chapter, the 9th verse. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be realized. And that which is done is that which shall be done, perceived. And there is no new thing under the sun. Now let's read it. The thing that hath been is that which shall be realized, and that which is done is that which shall be perceived, and there is no new thing under the sun. Indeed, nothing comes into being and nothing goes out of being. Why, right now is the only time there is. Right now you are complete. Now you're complete joy, complete peace, complete life, complete light. Open your eyes and perceive the glorious beauty, the glorious love, the fulfillment that is your identity, right here, right now. Oh, you know, we hear so much about being one with God. Well, that's not bad, but it just isn't enough. It's not enough to say, I am one with God. It's being one, all right, just being one, period. Not with God. It's not even being one with the universe, but it is being the one, knowing that we are the very essence, the consciousness, the life that comprises this universe. Now, let's continue with our exploration of the tremendous importance of this word completeness. As we stated before, it's a complete universe, not in a state of becoming complete. It's eternally, infinitely complete, for this is an eternal universe as well as being an infinite universe. And remember, you are this infinite completeness. Know it, be it. Oh, completeness means so many things. It means, for instance, complete intelligence. You know, there's no such thing as partial intelligence. In order to be intelligent at all, anyone has to be complete intelligence. If one is intelligent enough to realize that twice 2 is 4, that one must be complete intelligence. Oh, I've seen some wonderful things take place. For instance, with children who were supposed to be backward in school, or not normally intelligent, and that kind of thing. I've seen tremendous things take place with these ones when it was realized that in order to be intelligent enough to even go to school, that they had to be complete intelligence itself. Now this word, completeness, also means complete control. Not control of others, you understand, but complete control of yourself, of your own life, of your own experience, yes, of your own body. I have seen wonderful things take place in this too. I have seen where one child seemed to have no control of its body at all. And I have seen that the realization that in order to even have control enough to open the eyes or to close and open the fingers, that there had to be complete control of itself. I have seen in a home, for instance, where there seemed to be inharmony that was completely out of control, everyone acting contrary to the other one. And when I have seen that home, as an entity itself, as a specific identity, the home is a specific identity, that there was the one intelligence, the one complete intelligence, in complete control, and that this intelligence was power, and this power was love, and the power was complete, and the love was complete. I have seen this, and I have seen it work what the world would call miracles. Yes, I have seen complete order realized where everything, or most everything, seemed to be disordered or disorderly. I have seen where if there was enough order to even have books arranged in any little sort of order, that there had to be complete order there, or there was no order at all. There is no complete order. Oh, I've seen complete peace. I have seen peace that where one would say, well, just once in a while that I have a moment of peace. And I've seen that there is no such thing as incomplete peace. There's no such thing as partial peace. That there is just complete peace, that peace is complete within itself. I have seen this peace go on and be realized as a constant experience. I've seen the same thing with joy. Oh, fulfillment. Sometimes it does seem that there seem to be vacuums or holes in our fulfillment. But in order to know the fulfillment of one slightest little bit of what we know should be fulfilled, why, if it's no more than the fulfillment of seeing a play that we would like to see, or hearing a symphony that we feel it is right that we hear. Why, this is complete fulfillment. There's no partial fulfillment. And this complete fulfillment is a tremendous thing to realize, because this complete fulfillment is complete fulfillment of life itself, of your everyday life, of your everyday joy. Yes. Now, you take the word beauty. Sometimes one will say, well, she has beautiful eyes, but look at her arms, or look at her hands, or look at her mouth, or something like that. Why, beauty is complete. There is no incomplete beauty. Beauty has to be complete in order to be beauty at all. There's no partial beauty. So there again, I've seen beauty realized, manifest, and evidenced completely where it had seemed that it was incomplete. And now, the most important word of all, consciousness. I have seen those who seem to be conscious of some good, some perfection, and unconscious of perfection in other ways. Now, if we can but realize that the completeness we are means complete consciousness. This is important. Complete consciousness of all the perfection, all the joy, all the peace, all the fulfillment, all the intelligence, all the life, all the love that we are. If we can just realize this, don't you see what this means? It means that right now we are conscious of being all of this. Then where is the delay? Where can there be a delay? How can there be a delay in being what we are seeing? You see, because consciousness is conscious right now. You can see this is altogether different than doing mental work to become more conscious of what we already are. Now, it just wouldn't be possible to use that word completeness without realizing that it means complete something. It wouldn't be intelligent. It isn't complete nothing, that's for sure. So let's see what we mean when we say this universe, our infinite self, is complete. Now I'm going to use a very misleading word. I'm going to use the word within. But there is no without. There is no outside. There is no circumference. There is no boundary line, as you know now. But you will understand that within really means an established, eternally, infinitely established fact. So in order to be complete, this universe must include within it all that is necessary to completeness. It has to be eternal, for if the universe, God, you or I were temporary, the universe could only exist incompletely, don't you see? It must be eternality, full circle, without beginning, without ending. This is the way it has to be for your complete life, for my complete life, for our complete existence. So the completeness that is the universe is eternal and is eternally complete. In order to be eternally complete, everything that comprises this universe, in other words, everything in it, has to be eternal, and everything in this universe has to be eternally complete. And if everything in this universe is not eternal and eternally complete, this is not a complete universe. Then you're going to have an incomplete God. Think of that. How could you hope to be complete if God be incomplete? This is why nothing comes into existence, don't you see? This is why nothing is in a state of becoming. Everything is. In illumination, we see the tree, we see the bud, we see the blossom, the full ripe fruit all at once. We never see a barren branch or a withered leaf in illumination. We get a hint of this with the orange trees. Why, right out here in our orchard, there are the oranges, the blossoms, the buds, all at once. And you remember that Jesus said, you say, it's 3 months to the harvest, but look upon the fields. They're white to harvest right now. Yes, right now. All is now. Completeness is now. Now, when is that complete health going to be realized? In the future sometime? When is that complete love going to be realized? Right now. When is that house going to be sold? It is sold right now. Oh, when I was in Nevada, where it was cold, supposed to be in the winter, the trees, why, I could look right out in the midst of the snow and the ice, and the trees were so beautifully green. The grass, the green grass growing right up through that snow. Now, in realizing completeness, we always realize perfection. for this universe is complete perfection. Now, the complete perfection of this universe is absolutely essential to its infinitude and to its eternality. And believe me, when I tell you that your complete perfection is absolutely essential to your infinitude and to your eternality. This is why in illumination we see only perfection. We never do see anything imperfect in illumination. If there were the slightest flaw, this universe, in this universe right here, there could be no perfection, you see, if there were the slightest blemish, either in the orderly activity of the universe, or in the beauty that is the universe, or in any way, if there were the slightest flaw, this universe could not be complete perfection. There is no partial perfection. Perfection, in order to be perfect, has to be complete perfection. Partial perfection could not be perfection. Now, everything in this universe, and you know, please remember that when I speak of the universe, I'm speaking about you. You are this universe. Everything that's been said here about this universe, that is true as this universe, is true as you. For
I hope you enjoy this spiritual audio. Like, share and subscribe for more.